Thanks for listening to this podcast of Trending with Timmerie. If you haven't already subscribed, please catch us wherever you love to listen to your podcast, from the Relevant Radio app to Apple, YouTube, you name it, we are there. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please be sure to go and give us a 5-star review to help other people discover the podcast. Anything you share in terms of episodes, whether it's texting it to a friend, posting on social media, helps to build up the kingdom for God, to help confront the challenging issues we face as a culture, but with joy, with hope, and with an eternal perspective where our faith collides with everyday life, bringing eternal principles to help us live our life joyfully.
Relevant Radio is listener-supported radio.
Talk radio for Catholic life.
Welcome to our Fall Pledge Drive.
Join the family.
I have really exciting news. This is Timmerie here on Trending with Timmerie. As you know, we're in our Fall Pledge Drive, and we need $3 million by the end of the week. But here's the deal. We have only barely almost reached $1 million. I would like to hit that out of the ballpark in the next hour. We've got 57 minutes to go to raise $40,000 and we'll reach $1 million. So if you can donate $40,000 right now, easy, we will have this done and I can go home. Well, I won't go home, but I'll still have to continue to do what we're doing here. But if you can give $4, if you can give $40, whatever you can give to continue to fund Relevant Radio, please support us. 877-291-0123, relevantradio.com or the Relevant Radio app. Oh boy, it is election day here in the United States, coast to coast. I know many people are on pins and needles. I really just don't even look at the election results at all until later in the evening. It's not worth it. We really don't see any real results until later on as it starts to close in here. So I've been keeping my eyes off. I voted early, walked my ballot in, voting on an important proposition. Especially looking at the states of California, Michigan, and Vermont. Prop 1 in California, we need a no vote to make sure that abortion is not on demand and to make sure that abortion isn't free, but also to make sure that against parental consent or notification, that teenagers are not receiving cross-sex hormones, puberty blockers, and literally mutilating their bodies with so-called sex changes or gender affirmation surgeries, whatever you want to call it. That's what's happening in the state of California. We need a no vote in California, a no vote for basically the same exact proposition, an amendment to the state constitution in Michigan, as well as a no vote in Vermont on Proposition 5. So please, if you're in those states, if you're not in those states, pray, educate, get the word out. And just a brief word, don't give up on voting. Elections matter. Politicians matter. Laws matter. Yes, God can work great miracles in the midst of everything and anything, but we have to do our part. So please, don't give up on elections. Get out there and vote. If you were thinking that you weren't going to vote this election, it really does matter, and it's not too late. Get some of those voter guides. Get the information. There's some great pro-life and Catholic-based voter guides that you can pick up. Joining me now is Hugh Brown, the Executive Vice President of American Life League. You can find them at all.org, doing incredible pro-life work across this nation. And Hugh, I want to talk a little bit about some of the lies that we're hearing, especially in the political world today, in particular coming from the liberal movement. It's been fascinating to see many of their own political candidates are leaving the party and transitioning into a Republican stance, and in part it's over a lot of these issues such as the abortion issue, gender, and even things such as freedom of religion.
Yeah, Timmerie, thank you for having me. I totally agree with what you're saying. I think people need to understand a couple of things. One, what you just said is critical. While finding political solutions to these issues is difficult, it's important that everyone participates, that everyone of good faith votes and supports candidates and measures that affirm life. At the American Life League, we put out our own voter guide. While we're not allowed to support candidates, we're very clear that the issues of abortion, euthanasia, human embryonic stem cell research, human cloning, the nonsense surrounding children today with this gender dysphoria, those are sinful, right? These are sinful things that have no place in politics. They're moral issues that are sins, and people should avoid them. People should oppose them. People should help educate others that may support them. But the government has no business killing children. The government has no business killing the elderly or the sick. The government has no business doing research on babies that are in the embryo stage. And the government has no business in trying to clone human beings. I mean, it's just intrinsically evil. So the lies come if we just look at those issues. They say that abortion is a woman's right. Well, we know that that's not true, right? At the moment of our creation, we have our own DNA. We are a growing, living person with a soul. That's what procreation is. It's a man, a woman, and God. Right? Euthanasia. We know that ending someone's suffering by killing them, well, we're killing them, right? And so we're just surrounded by lies. And I know you as a young parent are probably deeply concerned, and I have children from 17 to 28, 29. It is very, very concerning to see what's happening to the young people with this business about questioning your identity, questioning your gender. We read things about the surgeries and the blockers and the chemicals that are just causing irreparable damage to young people, and it's being foisted on them by a media and by a general popular society that embraces this, and it's just evil, and it's not true. And I think at the heart of voting, the Catholic person, the Christian person, has a moral obligation to oppose things that are intrinsically evil. Right? You cannot support them. You can't condone them. And as you and I discussed earlier, you can't have any fear in discussing them. It's like Christians and Catholics are the vast majority of them. Like, you've probably seen it. An issue like this will come up, and people that you know agree with the truth just kind of recoil at having the conversation. And that's the devil. The devil works on us through our fear. Got to dismiss it. Got to trust. Got to have. That's what faith is. Overcoming things that are difficult, not easy. Right? That's what people have to turn to. And I hope they're listening to you tonight. I hope they're voting, and I hope they're supporting you and writing big checks and helping you exceed your $3 million goal.
Oh, Hugh, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm thinking of the story of Democrat presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard. We, knew her in the last election. Many followed her, younger candidate for president last time. And she has been saying quite a number of controversial things, from being a Democrat to now converting recently to the Republican Party. And it's interesting because she spoke up about Proposition 3 in Michigan, and you see this conversion of position on a lot of these issues that these candidates are having, in particular the gender issue and the abortion issue. I think some candidates are feeling a little bit more comfortable, especially the younger ones, that really actually sharing some of their thoughts on these issues and just changing parties altogether. But it's interesting because she in particular, Tulsi Gabbard, has commented on three things in particular with regard to the Michigan Prop 3 that we need to see a no vote on so that abortion isn't enshrined in the state constitution, along with really damaging pro-LGBTQ surgeries and chemicals for children, minors. But she emphasized, I think, some really common sense things, that whether you're pro-life, whether you're okay with transgenderism, that we can all agree on. She made it very clear that Michigan Proposal 3 needs a no vote and cannot pass today, because if it does, a few really simple things are going to happen. Abortion clinics will no longer be required to do basic sanitary inspections for health and safety in order to maintain their licensing. So they just get a free pass. They just get their license and don't even have to meet basic health standards for basic women's health care. It's disgusting. No one in the state of Michigan should be voting in favor of this. That's why we need to see a no vote. But she also emphasizes, hey, no one should be okay with infanticide. And that's what Proposition 3 in Michigan, Proposition 1 in California, and Proposition 5 in Vermont are doing. It's allowing infanticide, literally babies who are born alive, to be killed. And then she also says these same exact propositions, particularly Michigan, allow so that parents have no requirement to be aware of if their child's seeking after an abortion or seeking so-called hormone therapy. And both sides of these political spectrums agree with what she just said. And this is why I really do have a hope that these propositions can be obliterated and not passed and written into the state constitution, but that requires that we're telling the truth here. And I think that's part of what's so difficult, because pieces of these propositions are so confusing and ambiguous in the way they were written, and they're not completely campaigning on all of the points of these particular propositions. And so we find ourselves in this position where a lot of people just don't know, and we sometimes have to be willing to have some egg on our face because we're telling people shockingly scandalous things about gender transition and infanticide that people just don't want to believe, but we need to break past the shock and get them to the point of action.
Oh, amen. And I think that we have to combat the language, right? Because the language is what's deceptive. All of these measures want to impose, constitutional rights. That's a powerful term, right? Reproductive freedom. Those are powerful terms.
Quote, individual rights.
Absolutely, right? And it's meant to pigeonhole you or back you into a corner to somehow suppose that you are now opposing rights, that you are somehow bigoted, that you are somehow racist. There is no right to murder, okay? And there is no right for, God made them man and woman here, XX chromosome or XY. It's that simple, right? It's interesting because they say there's 30-something genders, yet when these kids go to have gender reassignment surgeries, right, they have one of two choices. Isn't that interesting? So
Yes.
We have got to combat these things because we have got to tell the truth, and they're evil. And not only are they evil, but a lot of if you look at the suicide rate and the rates of just absolute lifelong difficulty and struggle of young people that go through these god-awful surgeries and then just face a lifetime of just regret. It has to be, not only is it evil, but if you do the research and look at some of the monies that are made, yes, by the institutions, the health institutions, the hospitals, the doctors, the complexes that are performing these surgeries, the government subsidies, it's a staggering amount of money. So they're willing to destroy lives, right, and mutilate people for the dollar bill, and that shouldn't surprise us. But we have to stand up against the language, too, because the other side from day one, when they came up with the word choice, right, that's what has been the most powerful weapon they have. We have to take that weapon away by telling the truth that you're talking about babies.
Yes, absolutely. I keep thinking of Pope St. John Paul II and how he coined the phrase the culture of life and the culture of death, and how we're living in this culture of death all the more so today than when he even said this. And so we need to speak and preach the light and truth of Christ. And I keep thinking of Jesus Christ, John chapter 18. I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. This is the hope we need in the face of this election. So get out there and vote. Father Rocky's coming up next. I'll be right back with Hugh Brown.
Hi, this is Father Rocky here to tell you that we have matching funds this hour to go along with your donation to double the amount of your gift. You may have heard or seen my Lenten lessons in the Mass when I talked about the holy water font. It's a reminder of the sacrament of baptism. Dipping one's fingers in holy water and making the sign of the cross is an ancient and beloved tradition of the Catholic faith. Our thank you gift, this pledge drive, at the $50 a month level is a Holy Family holy water font. It's got a unique bowl in the shape of a seashell, the ancient Christian symbol of baptism, and is a beautiful image of the Nativity of our Lord. This Holy Family holy water font will look great next to one of your outside doors, and it was handcrafted in Steubenville, Ohio. It's yours for a donation of $50 a month to Relevant Radio. Give online now at relevantradio.com or on the Relevant Radio app, or call 877-291-0123. And join the family now and take advantage of a 100% match.
Hey, this is Cale Clark from The Cale Clark Show and the Faith Explained program on Relevant Radio, joining Timmerie for this hour of trending. And what an hour of power it's already been. Really enjoying the conversation with Hugh Brown from the American Life League. And hey, if you really kind of turn that into an acronym, it's ALL. And he's all in, and hopefully you are all in as well when it comes to supporting Relevant Radio. We want you to join the family. That's our theme for this last pledge drive of 2022. A lot of you guys want to make your gifts coming into the end of the year, want to get tax credit. Well, guess what? Got a couple of pieces of good news for you. Not only is your gift 100% tax deductible when you give to Relevant Radio, but it's 100% matched during this hour. That's right, because of a generous donor just like you, every dollar that is given during this hour of trending will be matched 100%. How do you get in on this? 877-291-0123. Dial that number right now into your keypad, 877-291-0123, or go to relevantradio.com or the Relevant Radio app, where there's also a special gift if you give online, Timmerie.
Yes, there is. So if you give online, we'll have that special gift for you. And hey, we've got about 44 minutes left in the hour. We need to raise $39,000. So a little less than $1,000 an hour. Every little bit counts. Compton, California, generous donor just gave for the second time and gave that $11. Michael just gave $11 in Michigan. Whatever you can give, please, if you can, we really appreciate it. Here we are in this election. I know it's a fingernail biting evening for many of us. There's a lot of concern about California, Michigan, and Vermont, among many other votes that are being cast for various politicians. And we're down to the wire here. And if you're concerned, I'm asking you to vote. Get out there, vote, and then give it to God. And one way you can give it to God is by saying, hey, you know what, God, I'm going to give a little bit more. It takes work to vote, but I'm also going to make a donation. That could be $5 right now, or maybe you have a little extra money that you're setting aside and you can give by the end of the year, right? And you can give today. It's tax deductible, and offer it for our church. Offer it for our nation. Offer it for faith to be instilled in the faithless who are voting for these laws that I just can't understand why anyone would vote for infanticide, for abortion on demand, for any of this, but where we can pray and vote for their hearts and minds to be changed, so that we know going into the next election, more people's hearts and minds have been changed by over 200 radio stations across the nation here on Relevant Radio, broadcasting these programs, telling the truth that people need to hear. So 1-877-291-0123 is the easiest way to give. relevantradio.com or the Relevant Radio app. Just tap that banner.
Trending with Timmerie, where you can discuss what matters most to you. Join the conversation, 888-914-9149.
I'm here with Hugh Brown, the Executive Vice President of American Life League. This election here in the United States is about whether or not we believe in reality. Because when we live in reality, that will determine whether or not we're happy. There are a lot of unhappy people out there. We see increase in loneliness, depression, anxiety. Fewer people are getting married. Fewer people are having children. Fewer people are staying married or staying present to their children and their lives. And this is why we need to talk about why elections matter, because they determine the trajectory, the friendliness toward the ability to have a family, buy a home. It determines what is and isn't allowed inside our schools, what is and isn't allowed in terms of funding for schools. It really does matter who is voted into office. Can God work even in the face of the impossible, even in the face of darkness? Absolutely, but we still need to cast our votes. And so, Hugh, let's talk a little bit about this kind of confusion of whether or not we're really living in reality with a lot of these things we're voting on right now.
Well, I got to tell you that it's critical that we vote, and I think what you said is that the reality, right? The reality of a male being a male, a female being a female, a baby being a baby. It's absolute insanity. And listening to your promos and listening to the things that are being discussed in between the segments of you and I speaking, I think it's important that people also understand that the people like you and the show that you're doing are some of the lone beacons of truth that are out there. And we have to do a better job of supporting those beacons, because it's the light, it's the light that is not underneath the basket. So many people live in fear, right? They know that their son is their son, their daughter is their daughter. They know that abortion is wrong. They know that having a grown man dress up like a woman and do sexually just absolutely disgusting things in front of kids at these transvestite, whatever they are, shows are immoral, are just absolutely perverse. People should be arrested for them, but we don't want to oppose it, right? Because we don't want to offend anybody. That's absolute nonsense. So people have to have courage. And the way that they have that courage is that they have to be willing to speak up. Most people are afraid of any form of confrontation. You've got to get over that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Christ confronted everything, and he did it with love. You've got to support things like Relevant Radio. We have got to have more voices of truth out there, because it's not just politicians. It's mainstream media.
Yes.
It's daggone every television show, the streaming services now. I mean, Disney, all of these things have things on there that are perverse. Everything, music, public education. So where's the truth? Even within the Catholic Church, as you and I discussed, sometimes you got to wonder, why are certain people not speaking louder? So we've got some wonderful bishops and priests. We've got to do a better job supporting them, right? And maybe that'll raise the courage of the other men who are just hoping for that little bit of courage to oppose the things that end up getting us labeled bigots and hate, whatever, right? Who cares? So I think people praying and supporting things like you are critical, because you're not going to hear it on CNN.
And this is why we do the program that we do here on Relevant Radio. This is kind of why I started and did Trending the way it is, because it's talking about hot button issues in the culture related to our faith, and helping us to see, where the rubber meets the asphalt, like really diving into the issue here. And I see us kind of at this point in history where it really is about reality. Do we believe there is such a thing as truth? And do we champion that truth, or do we not? And when you mention, having the courage to speak up, I think that when we have the facts, when we have the information, when we hear the stories too, that can embolden us to no longer be afraid of what people think, because we know we're standing on the side of truth. And I think we're at this point, Hugh, where we can have to decide whether or not we're going to be a politician the rest of our life. I think of Pontius Pilate, who justifiably can be picked on when we talk about salvation history. He was warned by his wife, don't have anything to do with, what's happening with this man, Jesus Christ, who's going to be brought before you. She had a dream that he was a very holy individual. He was uncomfortable with his choice. He didn't have any problem with Jesus. He saw the persecution that the Jews were levying against him, but he almost had this false level of neutrality. And at one point, when he's conversing back and forth with Jesus Christ, trying to decide what to do, Jesus says, "For this I was born, and for this I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice." It's in John chapter 18. That was what Christ was meant to do by coming into the world. This was the mission he was ushering in for all of us. We're called to be like Christ and understand truth is our mission. But Pilate struggled with that, because Pilate's response was this. And I think that this is the question of the culture. What is truth? Who can say it, right? And I think that that's the challenge. Will we be a politician and say, okay, here's this person who clearly is, amazing and is standing out to me, but I don't have the courage to even acknowledge what reality is or is not.
Listen, I can't tell you the number of times that I have responded to someone that is telling me about their truth. Okay, that's a nonsensical term. The truth is absolute. The truth is written onto the heart of every human being at the moment of our creation. We know what it is, and we either accept it or we reject it. And we live in a world that's rejected it. They've rejected it openly, and the challenge to us is to oppose that, right? And as Christians, Catholics, we have to do it faithfully, right? You do things with humility, but Christ also stood firm. And as I've mentioned before, when he picked his apostles, he picked men, right? I mean, meaning he picked guys, fishermen, guys that were tough guys, probably, surly guys. He picked men that were willing to stand firm. And men and women today, that's what Christ needs. We've got to stand firm. It's got to begin in our own home, right? We can't have these conversations and then walk in our house and have our children looking at things on the internet, or have them exposed to things in the neighborhood that undo everything we're trying to teach them. So I tell parents all the time, you're not your kid's best friend, right? It has to begin at home. And from the home, then it moves outward. And we've got to stand firm, and we've got to set great examples. We've got to have hope. The family has to pray. I don't think there's any more powerful weapon in the universe than the prayer of a family, especially the rosary. And that's what arms us, right? It's the armor of God, and that allows us to take these things on, do things like you are doing at Relevant Radio, and bear witness to the truth. And God willing, people just stand up with courage and support it. Again, they can pray, they can stand strong, and they can support people like you who are fighting the good fight.
Yeah, we're asking you to take part in the battle for truth, reality, souls, and that means your life today and tomorrow. So you need to get out there and vote if you haven't already. Pray, offer fasts. Hey, skip dinner, offer that fast for the outcome of the election, and donate here to Relevant Radio. I'll be back here in just a little bit to talk more about the impact of the elections in the coming days on Relevant Radio. That's been Hugh Brown, ALL.org, to see more of his work.
Hey everybody, this is Cale. You know me from the Cale Clark Show and the Faith Explained here on Relevant Radio, and I'm here with Timmerie. We're on a first name basis. And hey, that's what it's like in a family. We know each other, we support one another. That's what we're doing here during this pledge drive on Relevant Radio. It's our last one of the year, and the theme is Join the Family. We want you to do that right now, 877-291-0123, or you can give online or through the app. And Timmerie, one of my favorite authors is Malcolm Gladwell, and he wrote a book called The Tipping Point. Well, we are really, really close to a major tipping point here during this pledge drive. We're almost at, Timmerie, our first million. We need to raise $3 million this week, and we are only $38,000 short of getting to that first million. And once we get to the top of that mountain, I'll tell you, we're going to go full speed. It's going to be an easy downhill ride. Well, not easy, but we're going to feel the momentum. So won't you help us get there? Every dollar that you give during this hour is matched 100% during our Partnership Challenge Hour, 877-291-0123, or go to relevantradio.com or to the app, Timmerie.
Gloria just gave for the first time San Diego $100. That becomes $200. Yes, Kathleen just gave for the first time $40 in Wisconsin. That becomes $80. We need $38,000 in the next half hour. Let's go ahead and pick it up. If you can give, 1-877-291-0123. RelevantRadio.com is the easiest way, though, to make your donation. And this is about hope. This is about hope beyond today, beyond this moment, into eternity, because this election, I know a lot of people are saying, I'm not going to vote. I hope you do. You better. But a lot of people have voted, and we've got to give it up to God here. And so you supporting Relevant Radio, recognize that no matter the outcome, this is where hearts and minds change. This is why I discuss these difficult topics here on Trending that tell the truth about gender, about cross-sex hormones, about literally puberty blockers that teenagers are being given. We talked to Abel Garcia last week here on the show, a young Catholic boy who started taking cross-sex hormones and literally went through with top surgery, surgically altering his body. He does not have feeling in the lower parts of his body because of what he was encouraged to do by the LGBTQ movement. And this election is about this specific issue. Candidates who will be in favor of your children against your knowledge having literally surgeries done to their body that are so damaging. So if you can support us here at Relevant Radio, please do.
We want to thank, in particular, right now, Letitia in Alamo, Texas. Remember the Alamo. She gave $100. That becomes $200. You can donate as well. 877-291-0123. RelevantRadio.com and on the app.
Powered by you.
Listener supported.
Welcome back to our Join the Family Fall Pledge Drive on Relevant Radio.
Thank you so much if you've given to us here at Relevant Radio. Len and Escondido, shout out for giving $600. We've had someone step forward giving a second time, Daniel, $200 in Minnesota. First time gift coming from Letitia in Texas. Thank you so much, and you're benefiting from our new Relevant Radio station along with station Redlands. John just gave in Redlands, California, another new station that we've just picked up. We're so excited to be broadcasting there in Texas and Redlands. If you're donating there, hey, support your local station. Donate online, relevantradio.com, or 877-291-0123. We need $37,000 in the next 27 minutes. So let's go ahead, please, if you can, pick up the phone, call, or donate now online, relevantradio.com. Okay, it's election day across the nation. I'm waiting to look at the results until little later in the evening. But again, if you have not voted yet, don't lose hope. I know there's been a lot of uneasiness with election fraud and wondering whether or not your vote even matters or counts to anything. And it does. It truly does. And so still pray, Vote fast. All of these things are important. We've got to do our part. So get out and vote. Don't remain silent. Know that the enemy wants inaction. He wants us to just think that only the election matters and we don't pray. He wants us to think that we don't have to do anything and that we pray and then we don't do anything in our lives to stand up for what we believe in. It all counts. Faith in action. The two go hand in hand. Especially if you're in California, Michigan, and Vermont in particular, you have the opportunity to vote to defeat an attempt to amend your state constitution to make it so that abortion is on demand, no parental notification, and totally for free. Also, the so-called reproductive rights put into these bills would allow it so that minors can be sterilized, so that minors could have puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones that are extremely damaging, causing long-term and permanent damage, including sterility, including the lack of sensation in body parts, along with if these propositions in California, Michigan, and Vermont were to pass, they would also allow for children and minors to actually have so-called what we used to know as sex change surgeries. You can't change your sex. It's a plastic reconstructive surgeon that does it. It's a reconstruction. You can't change reality. And so that's why we need to see no votes on Proposition 1 in California, Proposition 3 in Michigan, and Proposition 5 in Vermont. I want to talk a little bit about the future of abortion. It's really important. We understand there's been news that has come out that there's been a massive rise in chemical abortions. We've already known for some time that over 54% of all abortions performed today on a low-level estimate are through chemical abortions, also known as RU486, mifepristone, misoprostol. These are chemicals that are used to end a life of a child, really ending by 10 weeks. We know that these chemical abortions are being given out as late as 16 weeks and later. It's so damaging for a woman's body. If you don't know what an RU46 abortion is, it is basically like nuking your body with a chemical bomb that impacts the production of progesterone in the body. If you break the word down, it stands for progestation, a chemical that helps you to carry your baby and carry the baby to term. I've shared before, I have low progesterone. So in the first half of my pregnancy, I was really having to supplement progesterone to help make sure I didn't miscarry. And then especially the last weeks in particular, I'm not sure a lot about this, but I've been struggling with pretty significant preterm labor. Actually, I had to take a day off last week because of it. But I share that because what happens is with an RU486 abortion, what is attempted to be done is that one of the first chemicals is given to try and stop that progesterone production, blocking what's needed for that baby to continue to grow. Okay, so we're talking about making sure that we see and understand the impact of abortion, how abortion landscape is changing. We're seeing a rise in chemical abortions across the nation. A study just came out that an Austrian-based non-profit organization, this is so sad, we have literally companies from Austria mailing chemical abortion pills directly to women in the United States. This is just one so-called nonprofit or business of many from over the seas that are literally trying to make it so that women have more access to abortion. So get this, there was a research done by the Austrian-based nonprofit that's selling these abortion pills to American women prior to the leak of the overturning of Roe versus Wade, that Dobbs leak, the draft opinion saying that Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned. There were about 83 requests per day just for this one company from Austria. Once the leak took place, that bounced up to about 50 more requests a day, to 137. Well, the number has more than doubled since then. They're seeing about 215 requests for mail order abortions to women in the United States. This is just one company, nearly tripling the number of chemical abortions that are being received. And there are many companies doing this. They're coming up illegally through Mexico into the United States. They're coming from overseas. They're coming from China, literally so that women can kill their children. These chemicals are a chemical bomb to our bodies as women. They disrupt the natural progression of pregnancy. I was sharing a little bit of my story. I've been struggling with some pretty significant preterm labor, or really fighting to make sure that I didn't miscarry my baby girl in the first half of this pregnancy. And yet these chemicals are doing the exact opposite of what I'm trying to do to keep my baby to term, or trying to prevent miscarriage. And these chemicals are trying to intentionally kill and end the lives of these children. But they also are causing autoimmune disorders for women. They're also leading to future ectopic and tubal pregnancies for women that can be life-threatening and destroying for mom and babies, future babies that are wanted. This is outrageous that we are continuing to see chemicals such as these implemented into women's bodies from overseas, or the fact that it's even allowed through the FDA here in the United States. We know the rate of complication following chemical medical abortions, the RU486, is 4 times higher than surgical abortions, yet over 54% of all abortions today are through mifepristone, misoprostol, the RU486 abortion pill. And so we need to really understand the future of abortion, as we see it continue to grow in the United States, and what it currently is, over half of the abortions, is a chemical abortion that is taken at home, alone. These women are suffering. I have dealt and I have come in side by side with women who are struggling through their abortion that they have chosen. And they are so mortified to share what they have done to themselves and to their bodies that they don't call 911. They don't look for medical treatment after. And for weeks at a time, they will be literally passing blood clots the size of baseballs, until one day eventually they see the passing of their own child, as tiny as that baby is, boy or girl, in their hands. Women deserve better. And I hope that we are ready to really tell the truth about these chemical bombs that are being implemented on women's bodies, and that women don't need to turn to any abortion at all, but to the safe and loving hands of our crisis pregnancy centers. And if a woman does start the abortion process, we're posting a link on social media, abortionpillreversal.com. That's abortion pill reversal. If you started the abortion process with RU46 abortion pills, you can stop that baby from dying through starting a good progesterone implemented, doctor approved and guided program that has saved thousands upon thousands of children. I had the honor of working with Dr. George Delgado's group right after they first figured out that they could actually stop a chemical abortion from killing and taking the life of a child. And they're effective. It's safe. Healthy babies are being born. So please go support the work of abortion pill reversal by sharing that information. Post on social media. Make sure people know about this, because women are suffering alone. You're listening to Trending with Timmerie here on Relevant Radio. I'll be back in just a moment, and I'm going to talk about whether or not that motto of "you do you," will that actually make us happy?
Changing lives in your neighborhood and across America. Here's another Relevant Radio miracle moment.
Here's an email from Claudia. She says, "Hello, Mr. Madrid. Every time we turn on Relevant Radio, I can't turn it off. I don't want interruptions. I can only give all my attention. We are so blessed to have this radio, to learn, to pray, reflect, and meditate on the Lord, and always remember that God is always with us. When you speak, the Holy Spirit flows through you." Well, that's the kind of you to say so. I'm not entirely sure that's true, but thank you for saying so. She says, "We can feel it, and we learn more about our faith and works. We thank God for you and for your show. It helps our Catholic faith, and it's beautiful." Claudia, thank you. What a beautiful thing to say. I appreciate that.
Call and donate now.
When you call, ask about making a recurring gift.
1-877-291-0123. Donate safely and quickly online at relevantradio.com or by using the Relevant Radio app.
Hey, this is Kale alongside Timmerie for these last few minutes of trending during this hour. It's our Join the Family Pledge Drive right here on Relevant Radio. 877-291-0123 is the number to call, or you can go online quickly and easily, relevantradio.com or the Relevant Radio app. And hey, when you give online, every dollar is matched 100%. It's true with the phone calls too, but when you give online, there's an extra bonus. It's a talk by Father Rocky about how to have a happy and holy Catholic home. We want to send that to you as our gift to you. It's a premium that's available when you give online. And Timmerie, you were just talking about chemical bombs, and that was scary stuff. And we want to drop some truth bombs. That's all the bombs we need right now, that's for sure. We want to do that on Relevant Radio. Won't you help us? 877-291-0123. Join the family today, relevantradio.com or through the app.
That's right. Easiest way to give, relevantradio.com. And as we're talking about abortion, I hear day in and day out from people who have been through an abortion and they're listening to Relevant Radio. There have been problems in the relationships, difficulty with, having children later on, and they see that it's in part because of the lack of healing from the abortion they had years ago, and they've never heard, resources and information about other options. And so this is why we do what we do here. And so if you are looking to heal from abortion, hopeafterabortion.com is one resource I'm posting on social media. You can find that there. But help people heal. We know that many abortions today are repeat abortions. And so if we can help and bring healing to people, that truth of the impact of abortion, it helps to prevent future lives from being taken and more women from hurting from the impact of abortion. And I keep thinking of one man who called a couple months ago, who stumbled upon Relevant Radio, wasn't Catholic, and providentially, we know God was working. His friend had just broken up with her boyfriend, had been left, should I say. She was pregnant, and she was wanting to have an abortion. She said, hey, can you just come here? I'm thinking about this. I'm feeling really upset. And he was driving to go and see her, and he heard the pro-life content, the impact of abortion on women, and he said, I don't want my friend to go through with that. I was talking to him, coaching him through what he could say to his friend, and how just that male presence could make a difference in her life and save that baby. And that's the difference we're making here with the pro-life guests we have here on Trending.
And you can call 877-291-0123 if you want to support Timmerie's show and all the other programming here on Relevant Radio. Join the family right now. Every dollar is matched 100%. I want to thank Michael in Philadelphia. He gave 52. That becomes 104. He's a new donor. Thank you, Michael. You can join him, relevantradio.com or through the app. Join the family.
You're listening to Trending with Timmerie, where you can discuss what matters most to you. Join the conversation, 888-914-9149.
I'm going to ask you and join me just to pray for our needs to be met here at Relevant Radio for this pledge drive, because people really need to hear the truth. And so if you can support us by prayer, if you've not already donated, relevantradio.com is a way to do that. I keep hearing it for years, this motto, you do you. I remember a good friend of mine said it to me years ago, really nice Catholic woman, and we were talking about, you do you, Timmerie. And I said, don't say that's the worst motto anyone can have. Yet in many ways we have this go get 'em attitude of well, you do you and you'll be happy, or you do you and you can achieve anything. And I was thinking even about the story that broke last week that I think shocked many people, of Miss Argentina and Miss Puerto Rico announcing that they had gotten married in secret, that they met back in 2020, and that now they shared through their Instagram story that they're married. And I look at so many of these stories, and a lot of people will be like, good for you, you do you, and just leave it at that, and not think about the reality. And I know we don't need to kind of completely go there about in terms of thinking about the reality of what this so-called marriage is between two people of the same sex, but it's a reminder that there really is a blueprint for the body, for the human person, for what doesn't allow for the mind to thrive, for the soul to thrive, that we're body and soul. And I just keep coming back to this when I hear stories like Miss Argentina, Miss Puerto Rico announcing that they've married. When I hear stories about, these propositions, Prop 1 in California, Prop 3 in Michigan, Prop 5 in Vermont, that are so outrageous. Abortion on demand, no parental consent or notification, free abortion, and then the ability to sterilize yourself as a child with doctors and parents having no idea, or take cross-sex hormones. A lot of people say, well, you do you. If it makes them happy, who's a parent to get in the way of that in terms of their self-determination? And I keep coming back to this story. A woman contacted me a few months ago, and she was saying, hey, I'm Catholic and I have a couple of children. I have cancer. Her name's Maria, if you could pray for her. And she said, I know what the Catholic Church teaches about abortion, but I have cancer. It was, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, in her uterus, among other areas. It was really later stage of cancer, very concerning, and she needed treatment. And she said, can I have the abortion and then get the treatment? And oh gosh, my heart just ached for this woman, and we ended up conversing back and forth. And I shared with her a story of Saint Gianna, who, had medical issues and chose to forego medical treatment, because that would be healthiest for her child. And I also talked to her about how, the church is teaching she could still receive medical treatment that could be harmful to her child, but as long as that medical treatment wasn't the intentional killing of her child, that was her choice. And you have this heroic stance that you could choose, or a legitimate course of option for medical care, receiving various medical cares to treat cancer that could be damaging to the baby potentially, but isn't the direct killing of an abortion. So I said, you never have to choose abortion. We also talked about the fact that the baby could possibly be delivered early once that baby was far enough in the gestation. And she just wrote back, she said, "Thank you so much. My husband, I knew it was wrong, but, we're in this point of almost despair. I'm already a mom. I have, another child that I'm carrying. I'm really sick. And, the culture says just do away with it. Your life is more important than this child's." And she chose life. She delivered her baby earlier this summer. And if you could pray for her, because she's still, she's battling the cancer. She's battling depression. She's fighting that despair of, why God, why have you allowed me to have these children and then for me to be so ill? And I just think about it. That woman didn't need the wound of abortion on her heart, her mind, her soul, in addition to the physical wound of cancer and the damage that has been done because of that. And these are the tough scenarios we find ourselves in as a culture. I think many women today believe that a child at the wrong time, getting in the way of their education or their career, is the same equivalent as if they have a life-threatening disease such as cancer. And we need to build up and answer those questions that people have, having to navigate real-life difficult situations, rather than saying, you do you. You'll be happier if you just get the medical treatment and have that abortion, and, hopefully you'll be able to, thrive sooner and, recover. We have to see the reality that there is still a line drawn in the sand of what is good for others and good for our own souls. And this is what I hate about that motto of "you do you," is that it says, ignore looking into the truth. Ignore looking into the impact long-term on your heart, body, mind, and soul, and on the lives of other people. And so this is why we need to remember that in the face of whatever the outcome is today of the election, whoever their next candidates are, whatever state constitutions do or don't allow for abortion, that we tell the truth. We stop just saying, you do you, they're happy, I'm not going to say anything. That we actually go deep. That we are willing to intervene through prayer, through words, through actions and example in the lives of other people to actually save and change lives. Because I think about that little baby who's alive today. And yes, that mom's struggling, but we come in, we support the mom, and we praise God for the life of that baby. This is what it means to be pro-life. That when things get difficult, we still support those difficult situations. We don't just go, "Hey, you chose life, now let's move along." That we're praying and intervening and living to the fullness of what we're called to as Catholics, as voters, and as people who are called to be our brother's keeper, helping in a society that is so starkly confused by the lack of truth and by a motto such as "you do you."
Hey, this is Cale Clark from The Cale Clark Show on the Faith Explained program, joining Timmerie just for these last 5 minutes of trending. It's our Join the Family Pledge Drive. It's our last one of the year. It's our last few minutes in this hour. And guess what? We have a partnership challenge. Every dollar that we'll raise in these next few minutes is matched 100%, getting us closer to our goal. But guess what? We will not have this tomorrow. So now is the time to double your impact for the kingdom as we seek to reach the world for Christ through the media at Relevant Radio. We actually have a really, really big milestone coming up. We are $36,000 away from reaching our first million. We need to raise $3 million. $1 million doesn't go as far as it used to, that's for sure. But we need to raise $3 million this week to stay on the air and to keep this programming coming to you. So if it's been a benefit, if you're a fan of Trending, if you're a fan of our other programming on Relevant Radio, now is the time to give. If one person gives $20,000 in these next few minutes, we will meet our goal, because that will be doubled. And that'll become 40. That'll get us over the hump, Timmerie.
Yes, so again, we need $36,000 in the next 5 minutes. So if you can give, I know Thomas just gave $30. Susan just gave as well. Susan is so generous. Thank you so much. And Caroline just gave $1,000. That was doubled to $2,000 because we have generous people who have stepped forward and said, I will match whatever is given during this hour. So thank you so much to Susan, Caroline, Malou, and Diane, who've just given as well. We only need $35,000 in the next 5 minutes. I know we can do it. But here's the reality. The truth is not being told to women right now about their health care, about motherhood, about what it's like to have a family, the aftermath of abortion and hormonal contraception. And I am so happy that we're able to share the truth of medicine and healthcare for women and women's real reproductive health, Kale. And this is information that women just don't have. And I'm amazed. I hear from teenagers, from college students, from dads who are trying to help get the right information to their kids who are suffering with various health issues and their fertility is being completely damaged by the attitude that hormonal contraception is the fix for everything, and so is abortion if you want to have a career and education or have a family on your own terms. And so, if you can support the work we're doing here at Relevant Radio, we really are helping to build up women who are able to care for their bodies, care for their families, and pursue truth and what they would like to pursue in life with a faith-filled perspective.
Absolutely. And if you want to help serve that mission, you can call right now, 877-291-0123 to make your donation to Relevant Radio. And of course, you can use the Relevant Radio app. You can use the website, relevantradio.com. That works too. And when you give online, we're going to give you a special talk by our beloved CEO, Father Rocky. It's about how to have a happy Catholic home. And hey, if you want to be happier, as St. Josemaria said, be more holy. If you want to be really happy, be really holy. And if you want to be super happy, be super holy. And it's a recipe for joy. And we want to share that with you if you give online, relevantradio.com, or through the app. And Timmerie, I know your family is growing. I wanted to ask you how you're feeling these days.
I'm hanging in there. I was sharing just a little bit ago, we were struggling with some pretty severe preterm labor, but with some great doctors helping out who are pro-life. It's been made a big difference. I'm recovering a little bit from a tough couple weeks here.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. And Relevant Radio and Trending with Timmerie is one of the few places you can tune into to hear true pro-life talk and get the facts about everything that's going on in the culture. And with such an important day in America, it's the midterm elections. Hope you got a chance to get out and vote. You need to cast your vote of confidence for Timmerie and Relevant Radio as well. If you want to support this program, 877-291-0123 is the number to call. Of course, you can give online, relevantradio.com, or through the app. I want to thank Vil in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who gave $501. I don't know if she's a fan of Levi's 501, but hey, we'll take it. That becomes $1,002 because for these next 2 minutes, guess what? It's a partnership challenge. Every dollar is matched 100%. One becomes two, 1,000 becomes 2,000. We want you to give and join the family. And speaking of the family, stay tuned to Relevant Radio. Father Rocky is standing by with Margaret right now for the Family Rosary across America. 877-291-0123. Join the family today.